Welcome to the Death Talk podcast. The vision for this podcast is to break the culture of silence surrounding death and dying. I'm your host, Lisa Murray. Hi, everybody. If you listened to the trailer, then you know that one of the most significant deaths that I experienced was my friend Derek in 2012. He was actually run over by a train, and his death is unsolved. I will get into Derek's death in more detail in another episode, but I want to let you know about that because ever since he was run over by the train, I have avoided anything to do with trains and subways and all that kind of stuff in movies or anything. And today's guest was actually run over by a train. You would think, why? Well, because this is how the universe seems to work. It brings us to where we need the healing. On YouTube, there's a channel called The Guardian, and Leah Green has a series called Deathland. And I was watching that, and I had watched a couple episodes. It was really interesting. She's really afraid of death, so she explores it, and she talks to different people. And another episode had popped up as a suggested video. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. I clicked on it, and it was David Ditchfield, today's guest. He was actually run over by a train in the UK. And I almost clicked it off just like out of impulse and you know, okay, this is happening. I can't look at it. But something told me, just watch this. And I'm so glad I did, because it took me years to heal from the physical part of Derek's death, the trauma, the thought of the train, all of it. It was really hard for me to get over. And I really believe that the universe sort of guides us on a path for our healing. Had this happened any time before now, I know I would not have been ready for it, but I found a lot of healing listening to him, and it kind of helped me imagine what Derek may have experienced. And yet he didn't wake up and come back to us, but that he went somewhere and had these beautiful experiences. Today's guest, he is going to talk about the train accident. He is going to talk about some of the physical injuries he endured. But most of our conversation is about the spiritual transformation. So I hope you enjoy today's show. And I don't know what I was thinking it'd be cute to go to this cafe that's really loud. Although, in my defense, normally it's not this loud, and I get a private room. I even pay for it, and I interviewed him, and I hope you don't mind the background noise. But honestly, most of my deepest conversations have always happened at cafes. So I kind of liked that idea that I was in a cafe in California and David's in a cafe in the UK. This is a long one today, but I really hope you get something out of it, just like I did. Enjoy. David Ditchfield fell under a speeding train, journeying to the afterlife, and brought proof back with him. And he has a book coming out in June. I think it's June 26th in the UK, but it might be July 1st in the US. Am I correct, David?
That's correct, yeah, it is.
Okay, good. And the book's called Shine On, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to welcome David to the Death Talk podcast.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. And on this podcast, I like to start with the incident and like what happened, and then go back and ask questions. Would that be all right with you?
Of course, yeah, sure.
Perfect. So let's start with the morning of the day that you died. What happened? Where were you? And I'll let you take over from here.
Sure. Well, I was staying at my sister's at the time in Cambridge in the UK, and I travelled up from London. I'd been living in London, and I needed to get a break. I was down on my luck, and I just needed a break. So I was staying there, and a friend came up to visit me from London for a couple of days while I was there, and so she had to get back to London, and so I took her to the train station, to the rail station, I should say, and to see her off. And while I helped her with her bags onto the train, she got quite a heavy bag, so I stepped on with her, and then I gave her a hug, said goodbye to her, and then I just heard the emergency sort of signals going off saying that the doors are about to close. So I stepped back, said goodbye to her, and as I did that, the doors closed, and my coat got trapped in the doors, and I was unable to release my coat. So I tried everything in my power at that point. I knew I was short of time. There was two open and close buttons either side of the doors that you could press, and so I was banging those, and nothing happened. There was no release. And I started shouting for help. There was no guard on the platform, so there was no one around, except for one other guy actually, who was actually there seeing off his girlfriend apparently at that point. So anyhow, I tried everything. I was banging on the windows, hoping that a guard might appear on the actual train itself, but nothing happened. So I knew this was it, that I was going to have to go with it. So the train started to accelerate out of the station and picked up tremendous speed, actually. You don't realise until something like this happens just how fast they accelerate out of the station. So I lost my footing and I got dragged, first of all, along the platform itself, and then eventually I was pulled down beneath the gap of the platform edge and the train itself, and then pulled underneath the wheels. So
Oh my gosh, I just can't even imagine.
it was all like slow motion. Yeah, well, it's a strange thing because it just felt like it took a lot longer than what it actually did. The rail police did a massive investigation, and it took seconds for that whole thing to happen from the point of me being pulled off and then underneath. But it felt like minutes, and it was interesting because I stopped and thought about this. I thought, right, I've got no chance of getting out of this now, so I've got to think. And it's this strange thought came into my head that I'd seen a news item a couple of weeks previous where a baby, had been thrown from the third floor of an apartment block that was on fire, and the baby survived without any injuries. And they said that's because babies are relaxed because they don't tense up because they're young. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that as well. So I just decided just to relax and go with it. And the whole thing was like really strange, because that I was able to do that and I was able to actually think it through. But I did. So the point of going under the train, that felt like a lifetime as well. I remember looking up and seeing like the carriage doors disappear almost into the sky. It was like this huge drop as there was this tremendous tear, and I don't know what that tear must have been. I guess my coat or what have you. But I went under at that point, and then I was just literally tossed around like a rag doll, and it was like being thrown into a huge piece of dark machinery almost, and it was. I was completely conscious throughout the whole thing as well. So that part was horrific, and that was that. Seemed to suddenly everything sped up then and went really fast. Then suddenly I found myself being released from all this sort of constant being thrown around and tossed around, and then I was laid down in between the track, and the train was still going over above me, and I thought, it's not over yet. I thought some undercarriage could just kind of just whack me over the head, and that would be it. So again, I was still into the survival mode of thinking it through, and I remembered all the Indiana Jones, James Bond movies that I'd seen, and thought all those incidents where they just lie down in between the track and put their heads down, and that's exactly what I did. And then the train eventually moved on, and I remember lying on this oily track, and the transformation of going from, well, the transition, I should say, for that going into that darkness of hell into like sudden daylight, and then the sound of the train suddenly disappearing off down the track was amazing, because I couldn't believe that I'd survived that, and so I was in a lot of agony. My left arm had been severed from the elbow down, and I just kind of. But my first thoughts were to look up at the sky and see this beautiful blue sky, and it just looked amazing. It just felt so peaceful, and I was just like so happy to be alive, obviously. And the paramedics arrived really quick, actually, because there was a hospital very nearby, just around the corner from the station. So they jumped down on the track, and what have you, and they started.
Wow, that's really lucky.
It was lucky, yeah. There was, I
Wow.
mean, there was so many different things just seemed to fall into place for me that day, which, as I went on to realise later time after all this, that all things are meant to be, they're meant to happen. There were so many different things. The paramedic who actually was the main doctor in charge, when they got me in the back of the ambulance, he turned around and he said, "Do you know what? There's a hospital around the corner, but there's a much bigger one, which I know will save you. Can you hang on?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Oh,
So
wow.
so I'm glad he did, because basically they managed to save my arm as well. It's
Wow.
which was amazing. So
Yeah, that is amazing.
but yeah, it is. So we just kind of the ambulance just kind of went, sort of really went full bolt. It was like a rocket going down the main highway, to get to this other hospital.
Can I
And
ask you a
we
question?
yeah,
I just want to go back underneath the train.
yeah,
And
sure.
did you feel when your arm was severed, or did you just notice it later after all the banging around?
No, I didn't actually feel the sensation of it being severed, because, in all fairness, I was just being thrown around so much that it's like you don't actually really feel. It's almost like you go through so much pain that you kind of numb to everything that's going on, and all you're feeling is extreme agony all over the shop, and it wasn't until one of the first things I noticed, actually, because I checked to look at myself and see what kind of injuries I'd received, and the first thing I noticed was that this coat had been completely shredded all down the left arm, and then I could see that my arm had been completely ripped right open. So so the odd thing was, the first thing I noticed was I could see like the inside of my arm, but it was, rather than it being a horrible shock, I was kind of thinking, wow, that's the inside of my arm. That's how I work. That's part of me. So I wasn't sort of horrified by it, which is a strange thing to say, but um, yeah. So that's when I realised then that my arm had been severed, because when I say severed, it was like, it was still attached, but it was just, it was just obviously just by a few tendons, as it were. So
Oh my gosh.
that's how they managed to save it, because yeah. But
Oh wow. Yeah. So there were still some parts that were still connected then.
yeah, there were still some parts that were still connected, and yeah.
Would you say in that moment underneath the train, because that's what everybody fears right there, like that whole part
Yes.
of it. That's the big, well, that and the unknown of what happens when we actually die. But
Yeah.
so underneath the train, would you say fear was the leading thing, or was it agony, physical agony from the pain? Which one, if you had to pick one that was more, prominent, which one would you
Oh,
say?
wow. Well, they're a bit neck and neck, to be honest with you. But interestingly enough, a lot of people ask me how I felt by the thought of facing death, because I really thought I was facing death, and especially as the train pulled out, I thought, there's no way I'm going to survive this.
Oh my gosh.
And interestingly enough, that is not as frightening as you think it's going to be. It makes me realise that with all things in life, the anticipation is often worse than the actual thing itself. It's
Right.
like, just to water it down to say you've got a meeting you've got to go to and you're dreading it and you're really nervous. The actual pre-nerves are worse than the actual meeting itself, if you like. So
So
if you
true.
multiply that by tenfold, that facing death itself and then going under, I mean, it was just all. As I say, I went into survival mode, basically. So there was a lot of me that was really having to think things through and to save my life, and that's exactly what a lot of people do. Because since my accident, I've obviously watched documentaries on TV about other people who faced near death themselves. Not just having near death experiences spiritually, but I mean the actual reality of I'm just about to fall from a cliff or what have you, and the same thing, they say the same thing, that it was all like slow motion and they had time to think it through, and they say the same thing. It was like a survival technique kicked in. So that is happening, but I would say that I suppose, look, the pain and the fear were both very neck and neck because it was all happening so fast.
I'm always drawn to listening to stories about people also, like what you just said, who also just face the physical part of death. So it's the spiritual stuff is very inspiring, near-death experiences and stuff. But I don't know why it is, but I'm drawn to, I want to know what's happening psychologically for the person. For some reason, it's something that I'm
Yeah, of
interested in.
course.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to you're in the ambulance, you're driving like a bat, well, you're not driving, but they're driving like a bat out of hell to get you to the
That's
better
right.
hospital and take it away.
Yeah. So we're in the back of the ambulance, and the doctor's talking to me, and he's just keeping me calm, and he says, "You're doing great." And what I didn't realise at that point was that I was losing copious amounts of blood, so that was the worry, and they got me. They raced me straight into the emergency department of the hospital, and who were waiting for me. They were all, there was like a whole team just there waiting. They'd heard that I'd gone under a train, so obviously they knew it was a biggie. So the whole team were waiting for me, and I was just kind of rushed straight into this whole team of doctors. There's all these voices going around my head, sort of sounding a bit frantic, sort of stuff, science that was stuff I didn't even understand, And I thought, right, they're trying to save me. This is bad. This is not looking too good. So yeah, there was a lot of that going on, and um, my family kind of arrived. They seemed to be there quite quick, actually. So they arrived at the hospital, and I remember the doctor. Again, everything fell into place. The doctor or consultant, I should say, who was in charge of me, he just started working at this hospital, so he was like really keen, to sort of. It was like a big job for him. One of his first jobs, he told me, that was like, wow, I'm saving a guy from who's fallen under a train. And I said to him, I said, look, will you save my arm? Please don't, take my arm off, because I play guitar and I don't want to lose it, So, and he kind of honoured that. That I had to go through a lot of that I did. I went through 3 major 7-hour operations for them to save that arm, But so there was operations and stuff. But
I'm glad you said something to him.
Pardon?
I'm glad you said something to him.
Oh, so am I. Yeah.
Maybe it just made him step up a little bit more and be like, wow, this guy plays guitar and he needs to save his arm. I got to do everything I can.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was like a case study to him, really. I mean, he was just like really kind of. He was constantly coming into my room and into the ward just to check on me, and he was like really. I could see that he really cared. That he just, I mean, that's not always the way. I've been into hospital since with family members, and and there's not that same kind of care. They just haven't got time. They're rushing around to the next patient. But this guy was just like there, throughout the
It's
next few years.
wonderful. Yeah.
So, yeah. So he's in. He's, for me, he's always going to be a big figure in my life. I'll never forget that guy. So, yeah. So, yeah. So my family arrived in the A&E department, the emergency department, and my sister told me afterwards. She said that there was just so much blood on the floor. She said she nearly slipped over when she came to my side. So. And she said that my arm was like in this kind of like big sort of plastic bag that was trying to maintain, as much blood and stuff. But yeah. So that was going on, and then my friend Anna, who I seen off at the station, she arrived next. So I was really pleased. I really wanted to see her badly, because I knew that she would have to have watched the whole thing unfold, because she was the other side of the door, So I was just really, all I could think about was her, actually, and
Right.
I was just really, and she just came over, and I said, Anna, how are you? Are you okay? Are you okay? And she was going, yeah, I'm fine. She was just like shaking her head constantly from side to side in total disbelief, that I was alive. She really didn't think that I'd survived. And In fact, she had false information which confirmed that I hadn't survived. Because when the train got to the next station, they all had to get off, and there was there was a message came over the sound system, and a guy said, "There's hold-ups because there's been a fatality at Cambridge Station, and the Cambridge Station where I was." So it's like, so that was for her. That was it.
Oh my gosh. When I first learned of your story, I thought about Anna a lot, and I thought, oh my God, I can't even imagine what her experience about all this was.
Yeah, exactly. Those are my thoughts as well, and we remained very close throughout the time when I was in hospital. We touched base on by phone and stuff, and which was good for us both, I think, because we've both been through such a massive thing together, and so it was good to support each other, emotionally, and but also I think that I was able to support her because of what happened next, basically, which I can talk about with you, and I was able, it helped her to know what happened to me next. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about
Yeah,
what
sure.
happened next. It's so exciting.
Okay. Right. Well. Basically, I at that point where Anna was stood next to me, I suddenly left my body, and I'd gone from as I say, all the doctors racing around, shouting out all these orders to each other, and bright sort of fluorescent strip, shining my eyes. I went into this really beautiful, calm, darkened place. And it felt like it was like a darkened room to start with, and I all around me were these like pulsating colours of oranges, ambers, reds, blues, and greens, and they were like really calming. Just seeing all these kind of like orbs of colour, and I just thought, wow, where am I? And then I realised that I was laid on top of what looked like a huge slate, like a big altar almost, like an old medieval altar. And so I just thought, gosh, this is incredible. I feel really comfortable. And I laid back, and I looked up, and there were like 3 grids of pure white lights shining into my eyes. But this time I could look into the light. It wasn't like the fluorescent strip in hospital. It was painful. It was like really beautiful. I couldn't take my gaze away from this white light, because it was just so calming and peaceful. And so I just laid there, and I lifted my head to look at my body, to look at my wounds, because I could feel no pain anymore. All the pain had gone. And as I looked down, I realised that everything was intact. My left arm was healed. There was no scarring. There was no bruising, blood, or anything. Everything was just as it was, And I was like covered in like this blue cloth, and then the cloth was like a sort of satin, sort of, or silky sort of material, and it was just so comforting. And this covered my body, and then I figured, this is it. I'm dead. I figured I'd moved on to the
So
next day.
you thought that you had a moment where you're
Yeah.
like, this is me
Oh
dead.
yeah. Exactly. Because it was just, the whole thing is just so real. It's as real as just as I'm sat here now. That it wasn't like some strange sort of illusion. It was all very 3-dimensional and real. And the sensation felt different being there. It felt like the atmosphere and was just so different and really like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And then the next thing as I looked up, then I realised that there's this being stood at my feet, just to the right of me, that was just gazing at me very peacefully. And this being was like sort of like neither male or female, like an androgynous being basically, and with sort of like blonde white sort of hair and pure skin, and just wearing like a black sort of t-shirt basically, just like a black top, nothing too fancy, and this being was just kind of like staring at me, and I've never really lost that gaze. It was beautiful, sort of peaceful, sort of smiling eyes. Just like a knowing expression, like I'd known this being for all my life, and beyond. There was a connection there. So that was really strong, and that was really powerful. And I felt comforted, and I felt like that being was there to look after me and guide me. And that's when I definitely thought, right, this is it. This is the next stage. And I thought, this is beautiful. So I laid back my head again, and as I laid back, I suddenly realised that there was two more beings either side of me, to my left and right, a female form, and they were kind of healing me. They kind of had their hands were just kind of slowly just going over the top of my body, and this energy of love was just kind of coming from their hands and into my body, and I could feel like this, almost like a sort of pulsating energy that was like it was just going through every fibre of my body. That was really beautiful. It was just an amazing sensation, and it was like all the feelings of love that I'd had in my life, either from my mother, from my pet animal, or my girlfriend, or what have you. It was all those different emotions of love, all encompassed into one, and it was just really, really powerful. And so that was an incredible sensation.
That sounds perfect. Every kind of love. I like that.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, it was lovely. And so that's at that point I suddenly thought, I wonder about my family. I was thinking about them, and so I just kind of I figured that I would just kind of take a look over the side of this big sort of piece of slate that I was laid on, and so I don't know why, I just figured that I would look down and see them. So I looked down over to my left side, but I didn't see them when I looked down. But what I did see was this most amazing sight, and it was just this huge waterfall of stars that was cascading down, and all these stars were just like sparkling and falling through light and falling into like almost like another universe, or into other galaxies anyway, and just going into infinity. And it was just like the most beautiful sight, and it was just incredible. And then I just figured that I would just kind of roll back over, and it's interesting because normally guilt was always a big issue with me. I was always feeling guilty. In fact, when I was laying in the hospital when my family arrived, I remember apologising to my mother, saying, "Mum, I'm so sorry about it. It's always me getting into trouble, messing things up." And she was putting her hand on my mouth. She was crying. She was going, "You don't say sorry, So it was interesting. So when I was in the afterlife, as I call it, that experience, I didn't feel any of those feelings of guilt. I thought, oh well, I'm going to see my family soon. They're going to be up here as well, and they're going to love it. They're going to love it here. So I've got nothing to feel bad about or guilty. So that was great, and I just felt really peaceful. So what happened next was the most profound thing, because I suddenly felt that this energy that I was talking about of love was suddenly being turned up, and it was like kind of like there was a new force of energy that was just coming towards me, and I looked just beyond the being of light at my feet, and I could see like this kind of, it was like a tunnel of white light that was just kind of slowly coming towards me, and this pure white light again was so beautiful to look into, and it was surrounded by this kind of like, they were almost like flames slowly sort of rotating around this tunnel of white light, and all yellows and blue, yellows and reds and orange flames, but they were lovely to look at. They weren't kind of like frightening fire that equal danger. They again, it was all very peaceful and beautiful and calming. This energy was just so powerful that I just had this moment where I just said, right, I know what this is. This is the force of all creation. This is God. This is not this guy sat up in the sky with a beard pointing down at us or what have you, or making judgment. This is the source of all life and mankind, and I just thought it was a beautiful energy. And it was at that point that I just I laid my head back and just smiled and just embraced all this beauty that was going on, that I suddenly found myself back in the hospital, and I was back crashing down to earth.
Oh my
And
gosh.
all the agony came rushing straight back into my body, and all the sounds, all the noise were amplified, and just kind of like, overload to the senses, and all the visuals were just too bright to my eyes. It was just too much, But it wasn't like I just came back and I was, it was just like a disappointment, because I was just so charged with what had just happened to me that, in fact, the first thing I wanted to do was tell everybody in the room, and like, I remember Anna stepped forward to me, and she said, they're just going to take you through to surgery now. They've got to rush you in. So we're going to say goodbye. And I said, look, I've got to tell you something amazing, really important that's just happened to me. And she just put her hand on my mouth. She said, I know, you can tell me later. Talk to me later, And it was kind of like, but no, but it was too late, I was rushed out and into theatre, So, yeah. So.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to ask you a question before I forget. You said the three beams of light, is that what you called them? Or three?
Yeah.
So were those different than the light that also accompanied the tunnel with the fire? Was there those two different types of lights, or what do you think? What's the difference there?
Well, when I call them beings of light, it's because they're in human form, but they just had this kind of glow to them. They were just not
beings
like
of light. So the
beings of
three.
light. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
I thought you
Yeah.
said
It's my
beings
English,
of
isn't
light.
it?
No. I think it's the Zoom. I thought you said beams of light. So beings.
Oh no,
So
they're beings.
okay,
Beings. Yeah. Sorry.
got
So,
it.
so
Oh,
they were beings of light. Yeah. In
wonderful.
that form. Yeah. So yeah, that was the difference. So.
That sounds so beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm mesmerized by this image of the tunnel, and I've seen some of your paintings as well, which we're going to get into. But yeah, it
Right.
sounds so beautiful.
Brilliant. Thanks.
So when you woke up and you're in the hospital, and I know you had all the surgeries, when did you start telling people? Who did you tell, and what was their response?
Okay. Well, the first person I actually told was my sister. So I'm very close to her. But I didn't tell her straight away. This was just. I remember coming through from the first 8 hours of surgery. So obviously I was knocked about by the anaesthetic, and I was in a lot of pain. So I was dealing with the reality of that to start off with. But all the time I was just charged with this energy inside, even though I couldn't even move, or I couldn't even move a part of my whole body without it being agony. So and I was just in this room on my own, which is lovely, because I loved the tranquility of just being in this room that they'd given me, rather than being on our shared ward. So my sister came the very first night to see me, and she was chatting, and she came along with a really good friend of hers, who knew me, and they were just about to leave, and my sister said, "Oh, is there anything I can get you? Is there anything you need?" And I said, "Yeah, can you get me like a small sketch pad and a pencil and a pencil sharpener?" And she went, "Okay," and she was like, really, obviously very baffled by that. But basically, what it was, I was really keen to try and, even though I could hardly move, I did this very faint sort of sketch. The nurses helped prop me up with this little pad so that I could sketch out roughly what I'd seen, because I thought, I've got to paint this. I've got to paint it while I remember it. Although obviously I've never forgotten it since. But at that point, it was so important to me that I've got to sort of document this and tell everybody. So that was my first step, was to do that little sketch, and then it was the next day when my sister came in, and I told her what had happened, and she was totally captivated by the whole thing, and then I told Anna next, and so it was great telling Anna about it, because, as I say, it really, I know that it helped her with the whole process of what had happened. It helped her to be able to deal with the shock of such a horrific thing to have had to have viewed.
Right. Yeah, I could see that would be very, very healing and needed for her to hear about what happened.
Yeah, that's right. And then I told my parents. It took me about a week to tell my parents because I didn't know how they were going to take it. It's that
Yeah.
thing with parents, isn't it? You're not sure, and you've got that generation thing. But also, both of them, uh, they're Christians, and they go to church and stuff, and so I thought, I don't know how they're going to be able to, how that's going to fit in with their agenda, so, but when I told them, it was really interesting because I finished the whole thing telling them, and my mum just turned around and said, "Yes, we know." And I said, "You know?" She said, "Well," she said, "David, it's just, every time we come and see you, you're just glowing." She said, "You just kind of have this kind of glow about you, and you just have this real peaceful energy that you seem to be helping others around you, even though you can't even move." So it's
Wow.
amazing how my mum picked up on that. And
That's really cool. I love that.
yeah, well, I also think there's that mother and son thing, that bond was
Right.
very close between us at that point as well. So there was like that kind of natural sort of thing. So that was really lovely. So
So
one time.
your parents were Christian. So did you grow up going to church, or what were your beliefs before all
Well,
this
there you
happened to
go.
you?
That's very interesting. You see, because I didn't really like going to. I did go to church when I was younger, when I was very young, and I didn't enjoy it. I just didn't feel comfortable there. So my parents were very liberal, and they said, "Well, yeah, that's okay. You can stay at home." So I'm talking about like sort of 10 or 11 years old, so I was very young, and so they allowed me to just stay at home and sit it out while we went to church and stuff. So yeah, in all fairness, there you go. I really didn't have any beliefs, and I just I wasn't like an atheist. I wasn't sort of like no, but I did, but I also wasn't a believer, and I didn't believe in churches, and I just didn't get it.
Right.
So
Right.
so now, I mean, obviously my faith is incredibly strong. Yeah, it's really, really powerful, but because of what's happened. So
Did you have any ideas at all or thoughts, even if it's just a small one, about what you thought would happen when we die before all this happened?
no, I didn't even think about it. It didn't really enter my thoughts at all. And I think about that now. I think no, I can't remember a time when I actually thought about it. But in all fairness, this is what I come to realise that a lot of people don't think about death. A lot of you know.
It's like the great amnesia, I think. We need to not know or think about that stuff, but some of us do need to think about it. So I can understand why some people don't think about it.
Yeah, I guess so. But for me, it's just kind of like that's my quest is to be able to tell as many people as possible that it's worth thinking about because it's going to happen to us all. It's inevitable, and that actually there's nothing to fear. And the reason people aren't thinking about it is because there's that kind of like inbuilt fear of what happens. Is this it? Does the light switch just go off and that's it? And we're finished. And that's what people fear, but that's not the case, and I know that to be true. It's like, I mean, I don't fear death myself now. And I can say that hand on heart.
Not only can it help people who fear death, whether they're conscious of it or not, but it can also help us live more consciously while we are alive.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It can do. It's and that also help us with grief as well. I lost my mother last summer, and
I'm sorry.
so oh, thanks. Yeah, thank you. And it was obviously incredibly painful, and still is. The physical loss, and that bond of losing my mother and stuff, who had been so close to me at my time of need, but it was also really, really great for me just to know exactly where she'd gone. And I mean, the moment that I knew that she passed, I just knew that she was in a beautiful place. And I actually spoke to her and said, "Mom, I know who you are now." And what did I tell you? It's great. And I was like laughing to myself.
That's
So I
beautiful.
knew. Yeah, well, I did. I knew that sister, so I knew exactly where she was. So, and I knew
That
she'd
is
be.
so cool.
So, basically, that's another issue that it's not just a fear of death. It's just fearing of where our loved ones are, and where is that have their souls just suddenly switched off, do they continue to be around us, and do they continue to?
I'm really glad you brought that up. Exactly. And did you have any communication from your mother? after she died?
Oh, I feel I do definitely feel like she's yeah around me a lot. I get lots of little different signals that she's there, um, and I'm sure a lot of people do get that who've lost loved ones as well. You know, you get little signs, and you kind of get a feeling. You just know that person is there. But an interesting thing that did happen actually was I remember when I went into the hospital the morning that my mum had passed, and you know we all my brother and my sister and my dad went in just to say goodbye to her basically. They kind of pulled the curtain around and stuff around her bed, and so we just kind of did our own private goodbyes and then left. And I remember with my mum, I just I just kind of like tried to sort of send her soul off, help send her soul off to the next place. And that's when I spoke to that conversation I just said to you then. And then I remember I leant across and I kissed her forehead and said goodnight to her and started to crack up in my voice as I said it, and I felt this kind of jolt into my heart from her chest, and it
Wow.
was like this kind of like it was like this energy kind of jolt. It was like into my heart chakra, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
I've never forgotten that. That was a real shock because it was like, oh, what was that, And so that was amazing,
That's beautiful. Let's take a short break and we'll be right back. I was with my grandmother. My grandmother was really important in my life, and I was with her when she passed. It was just we were together, and she was nearing death. And when she actually left her body, and I'd never had this experience before or since, I felt like she went through my heart. I felt like she hugged my heart or squeezed
wow,
it, or I
fantastic.
don't know what. It just felt like a hug, and then she shot up into the ceiling. So
Right.
it sounds similar, but it's a feeling I've never forgotten either.
Yes, exactly. And you know it, don't you? You just know it to be true. That's great. That's lovely.
Definitely. Well, I'm glad that I think you really helped your mom also probably not fear death as well. I mean, not that she did, but, maybe we all do. The human part of us does, just by being here, no matter how much we believe in something else. There's probably always still a little part of us that gets afraid unless you've actually had a near-death experience, and then you bring that back into your physical body and you remember the view and the sensations and all of that. But you probably helped her make that transition just from remembering how you were right after your
Yeah,
accident.
well, that's that was what I wanted to do at that point. I was glad that I'd been given that moment just to be on my own with her, just to do that and help her make sure that her soul was going safely on its way onto the next stage. And so I really, yeah, I agree with you on that. Because I've got other friends who've lost parents over the last few years or so, and a couple of them have said that it's they were scared when they were dying. They didn't want to die. They were scared of dying, and that must be so awful. That must be so hard because that means that your soul is just still trying to hang on and not basically going with it and not allowing itself to peacefully pass on to the
Right.
next stage. So, although I didn't feel that with my mum. I didn't feel like she was. I felt like she the whole her whole exit was actually was nice, beautifully orchestrated, if you like. And we all said that as well within the family. Without me talking, I didn't really talk about that too much with my family, but we all felt like her passing was very peaceful. So yeah.
It's really beautiful. I would have never known had I not been with my grandmother. I think I thought of it as kind of scary and something to avoid. And
Yes.
I loved my grandmother so much. I mean, the love I have for her is just unbelievable. And I was actually born in Geneva, so I call her grand-mère. And my grand-mère, I mean, was like everything to me. And having gone through that experience absolutely transformed me. And I feel like it's our it's like so sacred and it's so beautiful, and it makes me feel, I just feel so good inside that I know that I was there for her when she was passing. And if anybody
Yeah.
listening right now has an opportunity to be with somebody that they love, whether it's a friend or a family member, when they're going through that, and I know you might be scared and it might be uncomfortable, but if you let the love be your, guiding force, and you connect with that, you won't be sorry that you were there.
Oh, totally. Most certainly not. Because you can basically turn it into a beautiful experience rather than a frightening one. And once you allow that to happen, then it will be, as in your case, it will be a beautiful experience that you'll never forget, and you'll always hold and treasure it. And you'll always feel great about that, won't you?
Right, right. So, did
You
you
know.
see any relatives or friends that had passed before your experience, during your experience?
No, I didn't do. I know that some people do. Some people, sort of meet up but I didn't actually see anybody there. Um, what did happen afterwards was a lot of stuff came through to me spiritually that I realised. The interesting thing is like I was very keen to talk to people that as well that I thought might have an understanding of what had happened to me. I remember when I was in the hospital, I went to the hospital chapel, and I spoke to the priest there and about what had happened. And I thought, no, just like the Christian church I went to, he's just not getting it. It's just kind of like he just kind of like gave me a blessing and said a prayer saying, well, thank you for helping David to get in touch with God again in his life and stuff. But I thought, no, you don't get what I'm just saying. So anyway,
I had an experience like that when my grandmother died, because she was Catholic. And so that when the priest came, I said, she went through my body. I was crying and was like tears of joy. I said, she went through my body. I felt it. And he goes, well, you were just in the presence of the Lord. And I don't know, I could just tell he wasn't really getting it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. It was like the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life. And she did it specifically so that I would feel it. And he took all the personal elements of it away and just made it about being in the presence of the
exactly.
Lord. I'm like, no, no.
Yeah, well, you've been there, so you know what it's like. So what I did do was I knew that there was a spiritualist church in the town where my sister lives and stuff. So obviously I was staying at my sister's afterwards, and she was. I say obviously no. I was. My sister basically nursed me. They gave me a room in their house, so her and her husband, and I stayed there, and they nursed me through it. My little nephew, he was only about. He must have only been 4 years old, I think, and he would help sort of bathe me and stuff. It was so beautiful. And but anyway, I was said to my sister, I've got to find. Once I'm able to walk again, there's a spiritualist church, and we've got to find it. I want to go and talk to them. And I'd been there. What had happened was some months earlier, I'd come up from London to visit my sister, and on the train I bumped into these two people, and an elderly couple, and the lady said to me, "Oh, well." She was trying to find out where the station was. She said, which is the next station?" And I said, "I wasn't sure." But anyway, we got talking, and she said, "Oh, we're going to see a medium tonight who's very good, called Julia Knight. And she's she's the best." I was going, "Oh, great." And I wasn't interested at all, but she said, "Have a leaflet, come along." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And do you know what? I thought, I'm going to go. So I went. And I went along to this sort of mediumship, and it was packed, and it was in this little spiritualist church. And while I was there, this medium was going backwards and forwards, and she was giving messages from loved ones to people there, people that passed on. And I wasn't looking for any messages whatsoever, to be honest with you. And then she just suddenly turned around and said, "Gentleman in the blue sweater," which was me. So she said, "Your life is about to change. And it's going to be big." I was going, right, oh, great. And I just thought, what's this going to be? Am I going to start earning more money? Is the relationship I was chasing after going to become big and stuff? But it was nothing to do with that, obviously. She was telling me that what was going to happen, this big accident. Because she said, they're not telling me what it is. She said, they're just saying it's going to be big, and be ready for it, be prepared for it, and you'll be supported. And that's what she said. So I had to find this place, so I did do, and it was just by chance. again, there's no such thing as coincidence, but I was just walking to the river one day with my sister one Sunday afternoon, and as we walked back, I said, "There it is. I recognise it now. This is the place." It was just a simple doorway, and people were going in.
Wow.
So I said, "I've got to go." So I went in, and at the end of that service, a medium would stand up, just kind of give like half an hour free of sort of mediumship, as it were, to the people there. And it was really beautiful and stuff. And I got picked out, and I started going there for quite a few weeks afterwards, and I got picked out nearly every week. They were laughing because it was me getting picked all the time, and they were constantly telling me that my grandfather was with me, and. Uh, One Sunday evening, I was sat just having a coffee afterwards, and an elderly lady turned around to me, who sat next to me, and said, she said, "How are you? I read about your accident," and I said, "Yeah, I'm doing fine." And she said, and then she suddenly turned around and she said, "You had a power animal with you that day," and I said, "Oh, right." She said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm a retired medium, by the way." She said, "Oh, okay." She said, "Yeah." She said, "And that's what saved you from that awful accident."
What was
She
it
said,
that she said you had?
"She said I had a power animal. It was
A
called a
power.
power animal.
Oh,
Yeah, it was. So
interesting.
this was like a spirit." And she said,
Wow.
"So you had your power animal saved you that time. It was obviously a very powerful animal." And she said, "But also your grandfather is a very big part of all this, and he was there, and he's been with you, and he's still with you now." And I said, "I know. They keep giving me his name every single week, So even though I didn't actually see my grandfather actually on the other side, but I just knew that suddenly his presence was very large, and I, I was very close to him, just like you were with your grandmother, and so he was and we still talk about him to this day. Both my sister and I were very close to him, and my brother. So he was a very strong figure in our lives. So yeah,
What did you call your grandfather?
Harry.
Oh, you
Oh,
did? You
what did we call him? No, oh no,
oh,
no, no, we called him Granddad. Yeah, called
granddad.
him Granddad. Yeah.
I always ask people because you hear all these interesting, like, oh, pop, and pops.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's interesting. And I also think it's interesting that there's such a thing as a retired medium. It's sort of funny.
I know it's really sweet because her daughter had been doing the platform, as they call it, that evening, so that's why she was there.
Oh,
So,
gotcha.
so she said, but that's why she said it to me. She said, "Look, I'm retired from mediumship now, but I just wanted to let you know
Mm,
that that's what was happening that day." And I said, "That's great," because I said, I'm learning all the time. So, and also what happened was that when I was there at that very first meeting, um, a German lady came over to me called Maria, and she said that we're not really normally supposed to say this, but I'd like to invite you along if you're interested. We do a healing on Thursday evenings, and if you'd like to come along. I said, "Yeah, I'd love to," because you could obviously see the state I was in. I got all these bits of plastic all over, holding my arm together at the time and stuff, and so I started going to spiritual healing basically, and I still go now,
oh, that's
and it's
great.
like it's amazing, and I learned an awful lot of there. A lot of stuff came through that as well. A lot of mediumship comes through spiritual healing, and
Right.
it's
Like a
really,
Reiki, you mean?
it's a bit like Reiki healing, yeah, but I'm fully aware as well that you're basically in touch with your guides, your spirit guides, and they're all there because of sending this energy through. So the healers, they basically stand either behind your shoulders or at your knees, sending energy through, and they're drawn to various parts of the body that need healing, basically, and they're basically conducting energy through from their guides. It's a really beautiful, peaceful
Wow.
experience.
I'd be interested in learning more about that. One of the
Yeah.
things that helped with my trauma of the whole my friend Derek who died, was like watching videos on YouTube actually of Reiki, distant Reiki, um, ASMR. I don't know, just all that kind of stuff because I couldn't leave my house, like so I needed to just do something. And
Oh,
so yeah, the spiritual healing is so like important, and it really helped rebuild me. I
Oh,
wanted to
brilliant.
ask you a question. Did you ever see the original medium ever again that said you had something, your life was going to change? Did you see her after the accident?
Oh, I made it my sort of mission to find her. I really wanted to find her, and I kept going. I kept saying to them in the church, I said, I don't know what, because I'd forgotten her name at that point, and I'd lost the flyer, the poster. And I said, I was describing her. I said she's got short dark hair. I said she paces around the room frantically, talking to these her spirit guides and having conversations with them. And they're going, no, 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 we don't get her.
Oh,
And then
gosh.
one week, there she was.
Oh,
I walked through the door and she sat there, um, about to give the mediumship. And I'm like, there she is. But she dyed her hair blonde. So
oh,
that's what threw them all.
oh, that's
If I'd
funny.
said she got short blonde hair, then they would have known straight away. And so I turned around and said, "That's the one I'm talking about." And I went, "Oh, of course, yeah." So yes, I spoke to her afterwards, and I just filled her in on the whole story.
Hey, so remember when you said that my life was going to change?
Yeah, well, listen to
Yes,
this.
something happened. Wow.
So, so she took it all in a stride. Actually, she was kind of because she's a very down to earth person and a medium, and so she was brilliant. And she said, "Listen, I do tarot card readings." She said, and give angel card readings. Sorry, not tarot. Yeah, angel card readings and stuff. And so she said, I normally charge. I forget how much it was. She said, but I'd like to give you a free reading. And I said, oh no. She said, no, I really would. So that was really lovely. So that was so we organised that back at the church. She had the keys to the church, and we just went in one day, and just the two of us sat there, and she just gave me this amazing reading. And then she actually said the same thing. Actually, she said, she said, she said, wow. She said, you just, first of all, she said that she said, you've got all these cats joining you. She said, they're all brushing against your ankles at the moment. And I was going, oh, wow. She said, yeah. She said, and she described them all. And they were all the colours of cats that I'd had in my life. She said, you got like a ginger tom, and
Oh,
that's one of
wow.
them. It's like a Persian grey. I said, yeah, oh my goodness.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and then she said, she stopped and she said, oh my goodness. I said, what? She said, you've got like, you got like a lioness just sat right at your side at the moment, And she
Wow.
said that is your power animal. She said, so there you go. So,
Oh, wow.
so that was
Cool.
really, really tremendous. Yeah. So that was all lovely. So all these different things would fit into place and start to help me make sense of things.
I
Help me.
totally believe that animals are like spiritually, I don't know if I want to say guides, or I just
Oh
feel
yeah.
like there's such a powerful thing. And um, I rescue dogs. So I have three
Oh
dogs right
well.
now.
Oh,
And
good on you.
they
Yeah.
are huge at helping me. Like if I start to get upset, one of them just will wake up, like even if I'm just thinking thoughts that are upsetting and I haven't said anything or done anything different, one of the dogs will wake up out of a dead sleep and come over to me. His name's Sparky. And he'll sit next to me and kind of roll his back against me. So he's touching me, keeping a
Oh.
constant touch, but increasing the pressure. It's really weird. I didn't notice it at first. I thought, why is this dog annoying me right now? And then every time I get mad or annoyed, or if I was on a phone call or if I had a bad thought or whatever it was, I noticed he was doing this thing. And I'm like, what is this? And then I realized he's trying to make me aware of my body and aware of what's happening when I'm having these thoughts. And
Yeah.
I love it. I think he's just the most amazing. And he was rescued out of a home and he almost died as a puppy because he was
Oh.
just left there. And so
Oh
he's just
no.
as amazing, and I just love animals. I think they're
Yeah.
these
Me too.
spiritual
Yeah.
beings, that are around us, just helping us.
Oh well, that's it. They totally are. I mean, they do get it. Don't they? That's it. They know when you're what you're going through, and they pick up on your vibrations, on your emotions, and they're there for you, like you say.
Yeah, definitely. So now I want to talk about your paintings a little bit.
Mm.
I'm actually a filmmaker, and I made a documentary after my friend Derek and then my brother Michael died about
Oh,
art and
okay.
artists. Yeah, my brother died. I was really close with him. Michael, he died about 8 months, or no, about a year and a half after Derek died.
Sure.
Um, And so I made this film, and it wasn't from a marketing point of view. I wasn't thinking about where it was going to go because I was so shattered and traumatized and like just I didn't care. And I feel like Derek put this in my heart and in my mind just to make a film about art, like just focus on artists and art and just do something I love, and that's it. So I contacted 10 artists. Some of them I knew in Los Angeles, and some of them I didn't know. And all 10 of them said yes. And they didn't even know what it was. I said, can I film you for a documentary? I don't even know what I'm going to do, but it's just about art and the importance of art. And they all said, yeah, sure. I don't know if I would do that, but I was grateful. So I went to their house and I filmed them, and it's basically about their process and what inspires them and what keeps them going, what's their process and all that kind of stuff. So not only did you grab my attention with the whole train incident, which is mirroring what happened to Derek, but then when I learned that now, since this incident, you have developed this skill and this beautiful ability to make these paintings. So can you tell us a little bit about, or me, I guess us who's listening?
Of course, yeah.
Did you sketch before all this, or paint, or what happened?
No, not at all. I mean, when I was younger, I always enjoyed sketching. Yeah, that was it. But I never got to a stage where, I was a trained artist or took it. I've never done any canvases or anything like I'm doing now, and I still surprise myself with what I produce. And it's. I know that for example, that first painting. I mean, when I came round after the operation and I wanted to paint what I'd seen, I wanted to do something really big. I wanted to do like a Michelangelo style, huge canvas. I thought that's how big it's got to be because it's such a huge thing that's just happened. And I was so ambitious inside to do this, and I got no skills or confidence or know how to go about it. And in fact, it's funny because I bought the canvas. In fact, my aunt was over. She'd come over from Canada, and we were out. And she said, "I'll buy you a canvas." And so there was no turning back. We got it, and it was sat in the room in this room at my sister's house. And it was funny. I bumped into a friend of my. A friend of my sister's came round and she said, "Have you started that painting yet?" I said, "No, I can't. There's not enough room in here." And literally avoiding starting it. I was nervous. And she said, "Well, listen, we got that she her and her husband run a health centre. They do like yoga and Pilates classes." She said, "We got a studio that's empty upstairs for a week because we're doing maintenance. So why don't you come and get started and do it there?" I said, "Okay." So I got no back out. So off I went, and then as soon as I started painting it, it started coming together. I just thought, "Wow, this is going to be great," and I just couldn't stop. And I was painting and painting, and it got to the end of the week, and I thought, I'm nowhere near even started on it, And she said, and Jane came up to me and she said, "Look, you can stay. Don't worry about it. We're cool. We can move around you. Just carry on. This is great what you're doing."
Oh,
so I ended up staying there. Oh, it was really beautiful. I mean, I owe them so much. They let me stay there. I was still there for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Painting.
What was your first painting? I want to ask you, for those that are looking on the website, shineonthestory.com, you can see all of David's paintings. Is it the one on top where it's the fire with the light at the end of the tunnel?
No, it's not that one. I've got to remember now because we actually changed the order around on the site yesterday, so I forget. But I'll describe it to you. So it's probably about. I think it's probably the second one down. In fact, so what it would be, you'll see the beings healing me, with their hands over. So is that the second one down?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
With multiple people and the blue cloth.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the very first one that I did.
Wow.
That's the first one that I painted. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I got no skills whatsoever, but I was being helped. I mean, I would stand back at the end of each day and I'd just go, "Wow, that's incredible." And that's when I started to realise that I wasn't alone. That I was basically channeling ideas and skills through from the other side, basically. I felt like I was still attached to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it's got this umbilical cord. There was a part of me was still in that other world that I wasn't. I never felt like I'd completely landed back on Earth. So I felt like this energy was still coming through, and I was just receiving all these uh, energies through and helping me to paint. So that's how the paintings. Obviously, I got better as time went on, because just like everything, you develop a skill, and you just my technique would improve as time went on. But I would still, and I still do, stand back and go, "That's incredible! I can't believe I've just done that." I say that to myself. I don't say, "Wow, yeah, I'm the most amazing artist ever," but
No, I get what you're
it's like
saying.
you talking about that film you just made. Every single painting I did was just for me. There was no end game. I wasn't thinking, I'm going to sell this, because I just thought it probably is going to be hard to sell my work anyway. Just, I mean, it wasn't sort of like gallery stuff that was going to be. I just thought, this is just for me. This is my story, and I've got to document it. And whatever happens to it in the end, as long as it gets out to the world and people see it, that's all I care about.
Right. Well, and also I was going to ask you, because some of it looks like it's something that you saw. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's like this is something you saw or something
Oh
you
yeah,
experienced.
yeah.
And then some of it, I was wondering if it was something you don't remember seeing either, and like the channeling, because I felt like these look like channeled images. So do you think some
Yeah,
of this stuff that's coming through is not necessarily part of your
yeah.
experience?
Well, I mean, for example, if you scroll down to there's another painting where you see me lying out on a slate with the being at my side with the black t-shirt, and then can you see that one?
Yes. Yep.
And then, now, if you look at at the actual sort of, that's like the sort of, the tunnel of light there with all the sort of flames sort of going around it, as you can see. Now, just to the left there, there's just kind of like this tail of fire that's kind of going off.
Oh, yeah.
And now that came through, that was channeled. I wasn't planning to actually put that there at all. And do you know what? The most amazing thing happened, that when I painted that, and I finished painting that actual pit, and my friend just randomly sent me this image through of these new images from the Hubble telescope, just taking photographs of our galaxy that had never been seen before, and it was like, it was an exact image of that tail going off to the left, and I just went into this moment of like, wow, this is unbelievable. And I spoke to my friend on the phone straight away, and I said, I'm just going to photograph it now and send it to you and show you, and so you can be my absolute, sort of judge here that this is no illusion, that we're both looking at something together. And she was blown away. She couldn't believe the comparison between. I still got that image, of it, and it was just so similar to that, which was incredible, because basically where I was, even though I said I felt like I was in a darkened room to start with, I realized in the end I was basically in the universe, because I started seeing like a whole, sort of. A whole lot of, as I said, when I looked down into that galaxy of stars, when I roll back over it, was like I could tell that I was in a massive expanse of stars. I was in a universe, and whenever I watch programs or TV programs about space now, I'm straight in there, and I like watching them, because it's almost like taking me back to that place where I was. And I want to discover more about the universe, and especially after seeing those images, that it just goes that what I saw was literally. That was our galaxy, part of it. Yeah.
That's amazing. I remember one near-death experience I read about the person. Well, actually, it's been several. I've heard this, that they say that the colors there are more than what are here in the physical dimension in Earth and stuff. Did you experience that as well? That the colors, or did you think they were pretty much within the spectrum of what you knew?
Yeah, there's definitely a different element to them, because there's this kind of element of sheer light to them. There's just, as I say, the beings were like of human form, but they were kind of glowing from inside. So there's just, and also the white light, the pure white light, is just like unlike any white light I've ever experienced seeing here on Earth, and it was just, and you could look straight at these colours, and even though they were glowing and bright, that they were just really peaceful and beautiful to look at.
So nice.
But I mean, the one thing that came next that you probably don't know about, actually, because I know that you saw the Guardian interview that you told me you'd seen the footage, but we didn't actually talk about it in that. Was that I went on to start composing classical
Yes.
music. Did
Yes,
you
and I
know
want
about
to talk to you
that?
about, yes,
Oh, that's fine. All right.
that's the third piece in all this, because my business partner is a music producer and composer, and he's an amazing multi-instrumentalist and everything. So that's the other thing. I was like, three touch points there.
Brilliant. Great. Oh, that's
So you
synchronistic.
played guitar, and
That's
then
right.
after this
So yeah, so basically I was playing guitar, but I was a very basic guitarist. I was just kind of like rock and roll, sort of 3-chord punk type guitarist, and Nirvana or what have you, So there's no great sort of like, sort of, again, sort of. I'd got no training whatsoever, in classical composition, for sure, And basically, what happened was I was going to the spiritual healing. And I would get messages through, and because some of them would give clairvoyant messages at the end, as I say, and they started giving me signs. One of them said, "Oh, they're telling me that you're going to start writing a piece of music about your experience." So at that point, I just figured, well, okay, I'll go away and try and write a song on my guitar, But although I couldn't play guitar anymore, so I pulled this old synthesizer out the cupboard that I'd had, a real cheap little Spanish thing, and I just started trying to put some chords together on that. And instead of me coming together with like a 3 sort of chord song or whatever, then I heard this passage and I thought, wow, that's really quite beautiful. And I recorded it straight away onto cassette. And I remember going out and making a coffee, and I came back in to listen back. And when I listened back, I thought, yeah, that is still singing back to me as much as it did in the first place. So it progressed from those 3 chords, and at that point, I just thought, this is not going to be like a 3-minute song that I'm used to writing, or whatever, or playing. This is going to be something that should be played by an orchestra.
Wow.
So I started hearing different sounds coming through, and again I was channeling, but now I was channeling in a completely different dimension, which is sound. So I was starting to feel these melodies and techniques coming through that were helping me form this whole new piece of music. And I figured, how am I going to get this out there? Now, while I was doing the paintings at my friend's yoga studios, people used to come up and have a look. They'd hear all about it. My friend Jane would say, "Oh, they call me David, the artist in the attic, the artist in residence." And so they would come up and have a look. And so one of them was a cellist who played in the local orchestra, and she loved my whole story, and she was very into all my art. And she said, "Could we use one of your paintings for the poster for our next concert?" I said, "God, yeah, I'd love you to." So yeah, so that happened. So we started becoming friends, and then I started telling her about this piece of music I was working on, and I laughingly said it would be. I said, "This doesn't feel like it's a normal song. It feels like it should be played by orchestra." And she just said passingly, she said, "Oh, well, maybe we could have a go at it, And I took her on the word. I thought, right, I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to make this. I'm going to pull it together and present it,
Right.
So I did, and my brother, he gave me this package that he said, look, I've got this computer package that you can use, and if you play your parts into it, it will record it digitally, and then it can transpose it into musical format, so that people into score basically. So that's
cool.
what I did.
Yeah.
And I presented this score. I said to my friend, I said, "Do you remember that idea I was telling you about?" I said, "Well, listen, I've got it in score format. Would you have a look at it?" She said, "Okay, well, I'll take it to the meeting." So they got back to me and they said, "We want to meet you for a coffee." So I met up with her and another girl from the orchestra. And she looked at the score as well. She said, "Yeah, we'll do it. We'll give it a go." So offered to play this piece at a concert. So I'd only got a third of the way through it then. So it all came together incredibly fast.
Wow.
And I'd got 3 movements for a symphony, and the symphony was complete. And I was literally turning up to the rehearsals, with the ink still drying on the paper, as it were. And the concert sold out 2 weeks in advance because the energy again was just, I was being helped. I was just feeling this energy was coming through and helping me to make this all happen. And I started doing some local press because they said to me, they said, "Oh, do you mind just saying a few words to the local paper about your piece?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." It kind of snowballed from there because people were really fascinated by the whole story of it all, and so that's why it sold out, because I sort of the BBC, which is like, our sort of network, TV network and radio over here, kind of picked up on it, and they came and did a news coverage on me, and so that's really what catapulted it into selling out 2 weeks in advance, which they were really shocked at. But it was great because, again, it wasn't like I didn't suddenly make huge amounts of money. In fact, I didn't at all. But I was just more like, great, people are just going to come along and they're going to understand what my story is, and again, the afterlife is a beautiful place, and I'm hoping it will speak through the music, which it did, So,
it's nice.
so yeah, that was amazing. So,
did you hear anything during your experience, like any of this music, or is this more channeled since then?
Again, yeah, this is all channeled since then. So I didn't actually hear any music. So
That's wonderful.
it's. I think that's the way my NDE obviously was set up, for it all to come through later. For a lot of it to all sort of basically, as I say, I felt like there was a part of me was still attached to that other world, and I still do. In fact, I mean, it's just there's still a part of me feels like there's like it's something that's very. I think about it every day. In fact, it's very much a part of my life, and spirituality is very much a part of it, because that feels like it's like a way of me sort of connecting with that. As I say, I going to spiritual healing is my way of going to church. I guess that's like my church.
Right.
Connecting with my guides and stuff, and sending my thanks out.
I keep getting this image from when we first started talking. I picture you like bent over a suitcase and you're unpacking it. And it's sort of like this endless unpacking. And I feel like that's what I see for your journey. Like you were given this suitcase in your near-death experience. And now the rest of your life, I guess, will be you unpacking all these pieces and sharing them with everybody else.
Oh, that's really beautiful.
Yeah, and it is a beautiful image. And I see it's a neat thing, because it's like most people, I mean, from what I've read, they have all this whole Technicolor situation, but then when they come back, they're like, but I don't know, I'm just sharing what happened, You're like channeling it into these things, and then you're getting new information and new channels and really for people, the best way to give them information, I mean, other than hopefully by talking, because that's the whole point of this podcast, but I think art is the best way to really absorb into people a message.
Oh, totally, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because we're ultimately energy, and we recognize energy, we recognize colors, we recognize energy in a color or a note. Music is so spiritual, and it's the best way to sort of say a whole bunch of stuff without saying anything. So I think it's fascinating what you're doing. It's really, really interesting.
Thank you, and thanks for that beautiful analogy, or whatever you would want to call it. It's correct. I'll take that with me if that's okay. And
yeah, take it with you.
Yeah, I'll quote you on that. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that. So where can people listen to your music? Do you have any online, or are you gonna have another concert, or what would we do?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've written quite a few other pieces and had them performed since, and so that's, and I'm currently working on a new piece now, actually.
Oh, great.
So that's coming together beautifully. But my first piece, which is called The Divine Light, people can hear that for free. They can stream that. If people want to go to my website, which is called shineonthestory.com, you'll find links on there, SoundCloud links, basically. So you can click on all three movements and hear them for free. As I say, I'm not going to charge for that. So I'm happy. I just want as many people to hear it as possible, really. So that's and also, everything's pretty much on there. The artwork as well. As you've seen, there's a few of my paintings, but also Instagram is kind of like my sort of platform for putting my artwork out as well, because I think that's a really nice sort of little, it's a nice sort of platform really for putting art up. So you can just kind of like feed things up every now and again, and people can wake up in the morning, put the coffee on, and go, oh, a new painting, still okay.
Exactly.
So it's kind of good. So yeah, but for the music, yeah, go if the shineonthestory.com, and that's where
Okay. Great. Oh, I want to read you something that I have on the podcast Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, what's your account on Instagram?
It's David_Ditchfield.
David_Ditchfield. Okay, I'll have links to everything in the show notes on the podcast website, deathtalkpodcast.com. And you can go to David's website from there. And also, okay, so I posted this picture on Instagram, which is Death Talk Podcast. That's the Instagram account. And it was, oops, I lost it again. Oh, the 5 regrets of dying. And so I want to read them to you, and I want to find out which one resonates the most with you. Okay, that maybe was an issue of yours. Maybe not, but okay. So they wish they had the courage to live the life that they wanted. 1. 2, they wish they hadn't worked so hard. 3, they wish they had the courage to express their feelings. 4, they wish they had stayed in touch with their friends. And 5, they wish they had let themselves be happier. Which one of those 5 most resonates with you?
Number 5.
So you didn't let yourself be happy before as much?
No, not at all. That's basically what I learned from my near-death experience was, as I talked about the absolute incredible love that I was given up there, that it taught me to basically love myself, which I wasn't doing that throughout my whole life. I didn't realise it. I was I was beating myself up constantly and blaming myself for the failures in my life that I felt were failures anyway. So yeah, so but I don't have regrets actually. That's it's hard to say that I don't, because that's one thing I did learn, that that everything's meant to be. Things happen for a reason, and it's all part of your journey. So I don't actually regret the way my life was before, because I know that everything was leading up to this point. But that was my lesson. That was my life's lesson that I came back with, was to learn self-love, and then that you find it a lot easier to give love to others. And
right. So, yeah. Thank you. So what scares you now? Is there anything that you're afraid of that you can think of?
I suppose it's very, what scares me.
It can also be nothing. No.
It is nothing. Yeah, no, but I've got to think honestly, because I want to make sure that one thing I've got to be really careful of. Well, not careful of. I'm very conscientious of. I don't want to come across like this kind of like, I found love and life is great, and I have no. Of course, I have lots. I still have insecurities and worries and fears in my life, but it's hard to find one that's really big. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know.
That's good. So what lights you up? What gives you a strong feeling of purpose? When do you think is the strongest moment in your day or night?
Well, when I feel that the energy, when I talked about that concert, the energy I felt then was really powerful. And the energy I feel behind the book that I've got coming out feels the same. And that energy is really great. And that really excites me, because again, going back to your idea with your film, there's no end game. I'm not kind of thinking, I want to be like a million seller. I want to be going out and buying my own yacht and getting a new car. I'm not concerned about all those material gains. It's more like the energy of getting this story out there. It feels really powerful at the moment, and I wake up each day, and it's very much apparent, and it's very much a part of my life. So
That's neat.
So that's it, yeah.
It's almost like you're inside of your purpose, like you're more aware of a feeling of purpose. I mean, not to make it sound religious or anything, but like, I have another podcast where I talk about people pursuing their dreams. And I don't think of it as like a 1 point moment or a destination. I think of it as like a zone that you stay in, where you stay connected to this thing where you are kind of like a channel, where you're learning from life, but you're also channeling other things and maybe your own life lessons to others. It's a give and take.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. That's exactly what I'm doing, and any time that I feel that I'm getting that message across to just one single individual, and they're taking it on board, and it feels great. It feels like, yes, that's brilliant. That I've I've connected with that person, and they understand. They're getting that same buzz about it as I am, which is lovely. It's a great thing, because it's not a religious thing for me. It's not like, as I've been through the whole church thing, as you know, so I don't want to be sort of like getting up there and trying to preach anything to anyone
Right,
at all.
right.
But if people want to listen to my story and they want to come, get involved and come on board and listen to the whole thing and look at my work and listen to it, that's brilliant. That's fantastic, because there's nothing, there's no hard sell at all in all this, so it's, so yeah, it just feels like it feels like the energy is kind of like authentic, if you like. You know what I mean? It's like it never was before. My life was never authentic. I was always chasing after all the goals that didn't belong to me, basically, in my life. And I think that's when things really never fell into place because they weren't meant for me. So.
I like that. That's a really good visual. I like that.
Oh, thanks.
So speaking of your book, can you tell me how Raymond A. Moody got involved in writing the foreword? That's a huge, huge thing.
It's a really huge thing. Yeah, it was just by chance actually that I noticed that I think I sent an email to him, and I thought, he's never going to get back because who he is, and I just sent and I sent the link to my website, and I just sent my basic story outline, and I said I'd love you to read my book, and I heard nothing for 6 months, which I completely understood. And then suddenly his manager got in touch and said, I've just looked at what you've written here, your story, the outline of it, and I've just looked at your website. It's amazing. It's great. He said, Dr. Moody's so busy all the time, so you just won't have seen this. And my apologies. So she was apologising. She said, but
wow.
I'm going to flag this up and make sure that he really will want to read this, and so I'm going to get it to him straight away. And that all unfolded literally, within weeks. Like, he read the book, he got back, he loved it, and his manager said, he'll probably, I'm sure he'll be up for writing an endorsement for you. And we're going, oh, wow, brilliant, So he said, well, yeah. And she said, he's getting to the end of the book. And then he got to the end of the book, and she said, actually, it's looking more like he wants to do a forward for it because he thinks it's so great. So I said,
oh my
great.
Gosh. David, that's wonderful.
So there we have it. And then he wrote the forward. And yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And he's such an incredible guy. And then I was invited to take place. A summit set up last summer, which is like the sort of annual MDE summit. And so they invited me to get involved in that. So he was like talking about it. It was great. Yeah, he'd be interviewed and then talking about my story, and it's like, wow, I can't believe this. This is like Dr. Raymond Moody. I know. Well, he actually coined the phrase near-death experience.
That was the first book I ever read about it. Was his book. I do want to say to all the people out there who have a dream, this is a perfect example of why taking action is so important. Because if you were just like, oh well, no, I'm not going to even try because he's probably busy. I mean, this is going to catapult your story to so many more people, which means it's going to heal so many more people.
Yes, exactly. Or more the case of you just kind of think, oh, there's no way I'm ever going to get, for example, in my case, Dr. Raymond Moody to read my book, and it can. And that was just, and making things, putting the energy out there and keeping it authentic, and working from the heart, basically, I think, really, really helps. But
yeah, and also having a website, putting your stuff out there. I consult with a lot of people who have dreams, and I always tell people, you don't know what could possibly happen. You just have to put yourself out there, and we live in a time where you can do that for pretty inexpensively, and you can just make a website, or you don't even have to make a website. You could even just go on social media, which is free, But a website's kind of good because, like, for your situation, you were able to put everything there. You were able to put, the interviews and your art and your music and everything is there. And so that's just amazing, and then you're able to say, okay, so here I am, here's everything I'm doing.
It is. It's interesting because, and just to push yourself as well and outside the box, and don't follow the rules. I mean, for example, I think this is coming from my sort of rock and roll punk background, if you like. But I decided that I thought nobody ever really makes trailers for their books, and I made a trailer before I'd even got a publisher.
Smart.
And that was one of the things that Raymond Moody's manager really liked. He said, "I love your trailer; it's brilliant." And I thought, "Great, it worked." Because I'd spoken to some other people who in the regions who write books and stuff, and they said, "Oh no, you don't make trailers." I thought, "No, I'm going to make one." So think outside the box and just go for it. There's no rules.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying that. It's so important. We live in a time where there's so many things that are possible with the internet and stuff. So put it out there. You never know.
Exactly. Yeah. I made that trailer, on my iPhone basically, and
oh my God, you did? That's so cool.
Yeah, I just edited it on my Mac, just on iMovie, and that was it. And so it can be done.
Cool.
We've got the tools now, haven't we? It's fantastic. It's amazing how much we can do.
I know. I can't believe, you can totally use your phone for everything. You could even probably have edited that maybe on your phone, but it's a little bit better on a computer.
Yeah, exactly. I like to have the luxury of sitting back and having a laptop there to do it on there. But I'm sure it can be done on my phone. Yeah,
it's probably irritating to edit on your phone. I've only done small things on there. It's not really that fun.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So I know your book's coming out June 26, 2020 in the UK. It's coming out July 1st, 2020 in the US.
That's right.
Do you have any events or anything? It's probably still too early, but do you have any announcements or any kind of events that you can tell us about?
Not at the moment, but yeah, I've got to start thinking about that. I mean, the book's it is available now through pre-order on Amazon. If anybody's interested, please do, pre-order. That'd be great.
Okay.
So yeah, but that's basically that's all I can say at this stage. I mean, I did an interview actually 2 days ago, and the same question was asked. Oh, have you got a book launch? And I thought no, because this is like my first book. This is a whole new journey for me that I'm not really used to. I hadn't really thought about that. I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. I should do a book. Right. So I'll let you know once we have anything up and running. So yeah.
Yeah, it's still pretty early, but yeah, you're right.
It is early, but it's good to think about these things because again, it'd be good to think outside the box, to do something that's not usual, not in a bookstore. Do it somewhere that's completely random.
Yeah, random. Totally.
Yeah, so yeah.
With Raymond A. Moody doing your foreword, you're going to be really busy around the time of the book launch because he's like the Elvis, of the near-death experience world. So I think that's a really great thing that he has sensed, or his manager initially sensed your authenticity, and that you really are truly just sharing your experience. You're not preaching. You're not, you seem very genuine, and I think what you've created is really beautiful. It's very tangible too, with the paintings and the music. It's just very tangible, and I think that's something a lot of people will really resonate with.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, definitely. Now, will you come back closer to your book release and speak with me again?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, of course. Good. That'd be great. Yeah.
And if you come out to California or Los Angeles, I would absolutely love to meet with you, and maybe we could do a live interview together in the room or something like that. That would be awesome.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. Well, let's do that coffee bar. Sounds great.
Oh yeah, we'll go somewhere kind of loud like this place.
You can recommend a really good coffee,
Oh yeah, I know a couple good places.
I'm sure you've got some great ones out there, haven't you? I mean, whenever I come out to the States, it's just like there's always extra things that we don't have here, like caramels and all sorts of different flavorings. Like, oh wow, that's new. Okay, I'll go with that.
Do you drink coffee or do you drink tea?
Oh, coffee, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't get tea at all, but I love coffee. Yeah, it's like my first. I can't function without having that first strong coffee of the day. So I've got like a really old Italian sort of espresso maker, like the the
Oh, nice.
aluminium,
Yeah.
kind of. So yeah, strong.
I'm drinking at this cafe I'm at. I'm drinking a lavender latte. So it's coffee with some lavender syrup, I guess. So I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but it's actually pretty good. And it's
There you
strong.
go. You see, we wouldn't have that over here. We wouldn't have lavender syrup in the coffee. So
Yeah, there's a lot of lavender farms in Northern Cal. Well, they're everywhere, but there's a lot around here. And yeah, so it's neat. It's good. Local
yeah,
farms. Local
no,
farm is good.
that's great. No, I'd definitely like to come over to that part.
Oh,
I
good.
haven't been.
Yeah, if you're in Northern California too, maybe I'll be here too. So
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, and I'd love to hear more about your films as well. That sounds fantastic.
yes, soul providers, because I felt like artists are providing something from another dimension. They're providing something to us that feeds our soul. And I wanted to do it as a docu-series and go to different, because it was called Soul Providers Los Angeles, and there's 10 artists, and I wanted to do it as a docu-series, like I said, but then someone told me cut it down to 5 artists and do it as a feature film and then enter it into film festivals. So I screened it last September in Los Angeles at the Valley Film Festival, which was a whole nother surreal experience. But but so I still want to do that because I like the idea of every place even has a different take on how, like, I talk with different artists. So there's a designer, there's music producers, there's filmmakers, and so they're all different but the same. And then I want to go to New York, I want to go to London, I want to go to all these different cities and talk to other artists and call it, Soul Providers London, Soul Providers Seattle, whatever. And it doesn't always have to be artists. It could be just anybody that's sort of putting their soul into something, a business or something. So maybe you could be in the Soul Providers.
I would love to be. I'd be honoured to be in it. I really would. That'd be fantastic.
Thank you.
That'd be great. And if ever you want to use some music, please.
Oh my God. That'd be so cool. I can't wait to hear your music. I didn't hear your music. I've seen your paintings, I've seen your other interviews, and I haven't heard the music. So that's what I'm going to do right when I press stop. I'm going to put the music on.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. And I'm really just so honored that you took this time. And I know that you're going to be a lot harder to get an interview with in about 6 months.
No way. I've really enjoyed this with you. I promise it's been a really great conversation. You've asked some fantastic questions and it's been lovely. So I definitely want to do another one. So yeah,
thank you,
let's hook up later on and that'd be great.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, let me know when, I'm sure you'll keep in touch with me and let me know when you're thinking of starting to release things out.
Absolutely. I definitely will. Yeah. Fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you so much, David. Okay, and then we'll talk again.
Yeah. All right. So enjoy the rest of that lovely coffee.
The lavender latte. Yes, thank you. Latte. All right. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. You too. Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. All the links, David's links, and anything that I mentioned in today's episode will be available on deathtalkpodcast.com in the show notes. You can also find us on Instagram at Death Talk Podcast and on Twitter, Death Talk Pod.